Great. Welcome back, dear audience. I hope you had a good lunchtime, and you're all energized for our next interesting scheduled sessions. I hope you had a chance to check on our booths, quiz, and selfies. Do post your pictures on social media with the hashtags and let us all get to see them. So, we just heard about the effective strategies to stop attacks, trust nothing, distrust nothing, next gen smarter SOC, and what do we have next? Wow, we have a superhuman walking in with the topic No More Ransomware Strike, Defend with Superhuman Human AI Cybersecurity by Mr. Yashaswi Mudumbai, the Technical Director for SAARC region at Sentinel One, who serves as a cybersecurity evangelist. He understands real world risk, challenges, and solutions, and has been a trusted advisor to his clients. He's a cybersecurity enthusiast and a security practitioner with over 17 years of experience. He has worked on high growth security products and platforms with global companies like SonicWall, Skybox Security, Tenable, etc. He's involved with consultancy and implementation of advanced endpoint threat detection and prevention solutions. He serves as a guide to customers looking to navigate the daunting world of enterprise cyber threats and has successfully addressed his cybersecurity challenges, including many of the country's largest banks and insurance companies. Welcome, Mr. Yashasvi. The stage is yours now.
Thank you, Suma, for the wonderful introduction, and congrats to ISACA. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I'll try to keep it really, really crisp. I know after lunchtime it's going to be a bit difficult to sit and listen to someone. I've been there, done that, so I'm going to keep it really, really simple. Let me just share my screen. You should be seeing my screen now. All right. So this is the topic we are going to look at. And before that, before going to the topic, yes, again, thank you once again. And as I mentioned, I'm going to keep it simple, really simple. I'm not going to throw a lot of jargons. I'm not going to, throw in too many, buzzwords. I'm going to try to make it really, really simple. So when looking at a threat landscape is something no one has a control. It keeps growing day to day, right? And when we look at media, when we look at newspapers, when we look at digital media, what do we get every day? Every single day we notice some kind of cyber threats, new form of attacks, right? New form of attacks in every single industry. Ransomware is something which is very, industry agnostic. It doesn't matter whether you belong to the hospitality industry, whether it's an airline industry, or whether it is a banking industry. It doesn't matter. Bad guys are looking for data. Data is the most important, wealthiest thing right now, because once you have control of data, you can do anything you want to. That's as simple as that. So looking at this, if you notice, India, most hit by ransomware attacks in 2021. Right. The reason because there is so much data available, and the kind of security controls that people have in place are not just enough. It doesn't mean that companies don't invest in solutions. The kind of solutions what people have and the kind of security practices what people have it's absolutely different, and there are new challenges every single day. Right, and when we are looking at threats, example right from last year, I'm not going to go to the history. Right from last year, NHAI, Apollo Tires, India Bulls, Delhi Medical Council, all of them were victims of ransomware. What did they get from that? Mostly data. All of the data was actually published in dark web. Right, so when we are looking at NHAI attack, it was attacked by Maze ransomware. Right. And over 43 GB of data, that is the personal data, was published in in the dark web, right? The gang dumped everything over there, right from their family internal audit reports to their passport information, so on and so forth. They did not even spare Haldiram's example. I'm not taking names here, but these are published reports, right? Haryana Power, so on and so forth. So what do they do? What is the most important thing from how do they come in? What exactly happens within the ransomware, and how does the protection actually work is something that's the exact topic what I'm going to discuss upon. right? There are a few more things that come across, right? So example, as I mentioned, attacks are vendor agnostic. Forget about vendor agnostic. It's actually industry agnostic, right? Let it be your, as I mentioned, Haldiram's. They literally demanded 7.5 lakh US dollars to release the data and the content. Air India, the airlines, the airlines themselves said that the cyber attack that compromised the data of all the passengers right from 2011 till February 2021, right? 45 lakh passenger data was leaked, right from the credit card information, the personal data, your birth of date, all of that. So which means that when you're looking from an attack perspective, when you have data, when you start looking at people information, you know that these are things which they are interested. You start searching for people's data, and you get a lot many more things from that. Following that incident, right? They did Air India. They definitely went ahead and said that, okay, fine, the compromises has happened. What should I start doing? So they started resetting their passwords. They started notifying their users, the customers, and even their their frequent flyer programs. They started resetting their passwords for everyone, right? And same way, the Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipality Corporation, the smart city projects. If we are looking at that, even they were attacked. February 26, as per the complaint, they said that the ransomware, they were requesting for the ransom to be paid in bitcoins, right? And if we look at all other ransoms, that if you look at keep looking at the entire trend, so it's just not just the ransomware that is that is being utilized over here. The most important thing which we should be looking at is the safety. What are the safety measures? What are the security measures? I'm just going to keep moving across, saying that what are the different types of attacks that we see on a daily basis, right? So there are different types of attack. There were different types of ransomware. It's just different names, but the end goal is to steal data. End goal is to cause some kind of disruption in services. Even PTI was not spared, right? If we look at India's ransomware, story in numbers, 68% of Indian organizations surveyed were hit by ransom in the last 12 months. Right, that's definitely down from 82% last year. It doesn't mean that we are increasing. We are going high. So the security awareness is actually increasing, but the amount of attacks are actually increasing. The complexity of the attacks are also increasing by the day. 67% of Indian organizations paid a ransom to get their data back. It's double the average of a 32%, global average of 32%. And even though the ransom were paid, only 75% got that data. It's given, right? So you're trying to pay a bad guy. Why would he give you everything? And once the data is out, once your data is compromised, doesn't mean that even if they give the data back, they don't have a copy of it. That's the horror story behind it, right? And if we are looking at the further data, 86% of Indian organizations believe that cyber attacks are not too complex. Right, so it's they think that it's actually not too complex. It is actually very, very complex, but with the kind of steps what is involved in an attack is actually becoming simpler. And certain attacks are very complex, certain attacks are very simple. There are a lot of obfuscation type of attacks as well. And compared to any other part of the world, APAC especially, there is a huge number of attacks that are going on across. What is the cost of ransomware? Once there's a ransomware hit, is that very simple to go ahead and plug it off and then get a machine, get another machine? It's not, right? We serve a lot of customers, internal customers, external customers. There's a lot of processes, a lot of data. It's not that simple. It's not the early 2000s, or it's not the 1995s where I can say, okay, fine, let me go ahead and do something about it. It's not that, right? So when we are looking at ransomware attacks, what is the cost of it? As per the survey, the average total cost of recovery for a ransomware attack has more than doubled from last year. So last year, it's an average, it's a study, from $761,000 in 2020, it has gone to 1.85 million in 2021 globally. And in India, approximate recovery cost of the impact of a ransomware attack has actually tripled from last year, from 1.1 million in 2020 to 3.38 million in 2021. So which explains you saying that Getting hit by a ransomware is ugly, and not just that. When you're trying to recover it, it's even more painful. And when we are looking at, what were the total amount of data that people actually got, it's less than 4% of people actually, of organizations, who got their complete data back. So only 75% of them were able to retrieve data, and out of that, only 4% of them got all of the data back, which means it's really, really scary, right? So when we are looking at all of the data that's actually out, everything is out, everything is on the cloud, everything is outside. Whatever data, your office data, your personal data, everything is out there. And which means that the safety measures every organization should take should actually start from the top to bottom and bottom to top as well. When we are looking at all the say industries, they did not even leave the IT industries as well. Of course, the IT is it has also been badly hit. Accenture, it was hit by Lockbit. Lockbit, and what they did is they stole some amount of data, or their client data, and it was all sensitive data. It was uploaded to the dark web. And when we are looking at Accenture themselves, even though they faced with the ransomware attack, they were able to restore everything, all of their data back as well to a certain extent. And what it does is it not only defames, it not only hits your CIA, but also defames the entire brand as well. So when we are looking from a ransomware perspective, the reason I just wanted to hit upon the Logbit is, the attack itself takes a bit of understanding. It takes a lot of time. So example, from a Logbit perspective, so this is again from Darktrace. You can actually read these articles. This is very, very interesting as well. How the infection actually starts, right from the threat actor. It takes a couple of weeks from a manual screening. They go ahead and do a lot of groundwork to understand how the network is, how the endpoint is, how what are the entry points, so on and so forth. So Logbit, however, only requires the presence of a human for a number of hours. It doesn't take weeks and weeks in order to do this. After which, once the payload is executed, it goes ahead and propagates within the environment. Once you start propagating within the environment, it uses SMB and WMI. It spread across the entire network. And once it starts spreading, once it infects, everything is out. You cannot do anything. You're literally locked out of your own environment. The only thing that you can do is you can just pull the plug, which is not possible nowadays. It's impossible. And when you are looking from a attack perspective, the initial compromise, the attack, when it starts commencing, right, it immediately looks at your credentials. So first of all, the entry point is to gain credentials. Once it starts coming through, either it could be a brute force kind of an attack or externally facing device. Once they start coming inside, then that's the internal reconnaissance which happens. So it uses WMI commands. Once it starts coming inside, it's just a matter of time. Within 3 minutes, it starts executing all the SMB hidden shares and multiple destinations, whatever the machine has, it starts propagating within the network itself. It's absolutely fascinating to look at these type of attacks. Once it starts encrypting, it changes everything. You will get a restore my file kind of text on the desktop. It's nothing but your ransomware notes. It says that how what are the number of files that I've got encrypted, where you should start paying, so on and so forth. And once this happens, if you actually notice the machine, you will be able to see that it starts maintaining network connections to the entire subnet. That's really, really scary. It's just not one machine. It starts doing a lateral movement as well. And when looking at that first machine, it's actually the patient zero. Once the the initial machine, the patient zero is infected, it starts coughing up all across. And when we are looking at all the lateral movement and all the infection within 3 minutes, within 1 minute, within a second, once it starts propagating, it's humanly impossible to start stopping it, unless and until you have a tool, unless and until you have an AI ML mechanism to understand what is happening. All other devices are going to start getting infected as well. What are the typical pervasive challenges? What is the ideology behind this? Why so many organizations are getting attacked? Why so many industries are getting attacked? The most important thing is the existing solutions which are out there. So one, when we are talking about AV, there are too many jargons across the market: AV, NGAV, EPP, EDR, so on and so forth. Right. So when we are looking at different types of solutions, the most important is how much time does it take for me to identify a payload, right? Once I identify the payload, what do I do with it? How do I start protecting my environment? So with all the existing solutions, right? So if it is going to be a signature-based solution, unless and until there is a signature, there is a new signature that is out, I won't be able to understand the new payload. So with this kind of a forum, I don't have to tell you that how a payload can be mutated. Mutating a payload is that simple. You can just change the SHA value of it. It becomes a different type of mutation. And the devices and the existing security solutions, it takes a full life cycle for it to go ahead and release a signature. Unless and until it releases a signature, it will not be detected. If it is not detected, it is going to allow you to execute it, right? Secondly, there are too many tools within the organization itself, right? So we all know that there are different type of security solutions. What this has actually caused is that it has actually added too much burden to the security user, to the IT ops people as well. There are too many places to look at. What should I start concentrating? Where do I start? Which is my priority? That itself it's becoming too complex, right? And people spend a lot of manual time in starting to investigate, where is the start point? Where is it propagating? What are the mechanisms I have in my hand to start, stopping these kind of attacks? And with that, the work from home googly came in, right? So right from last year, we all started working from home. And what happened is the traditional way of protecting the machine, it could be your laptop, it could be your handheld device, whatever it is, right? It started, it was not able to get all the updates. And, for us, we work in remote areas as well. And certain times, even in a city like Bangalore, we do have a lot of network disruptions. The infrastructure is not all that, completely ready. So what happens is the existing solutions, when they have to look upon to a master console in order to gain some kind of instruction in order to stop any kind of attack. If you don't have connectivity to a central console, it could be cloud, it could be on-prem, whatever it is. What happens is the time you lose that critical time, and the payload executes. The latest payloads are not understood by the old solutions. Fileless type of an attack, LOTL type of an attack. Example, we are all connected to our own home internet. Not every organization is going to give you a site-to-site. It's not going to be a complete full tunnel VPN. It's going to be a split tunnel VPN in certain cases, which means that there is definitely a way the device actually communicates outside. There is a way that the data comes in as well. With all of that, of course, cloud is not something new. So the reason I have the cloud also over there is not just your workloads which are outside, not just your workloads which are there within your LAN environment. The cloud workloads are something which needs to be protected as well, right? So the protection of the cloud instance it's your responsibility. It is not the native vendor's responsibility. When we are looking from a attack perspective, the most important thing to look at a payload execution. I wouldn't call it as an attack. It's a very simple payload execution. The most important thing to look at is time to contain, right? That is actually a key. So what are the most important things? 95% of the breaches actually originate at the endpoint. When I mention endpoint, it is not just your your end computing machines. It's also your servers. It's also your cloud workloads as well. It starts actually from the most of the attacks. 95% of the breaches actually originate from the endpoint. Endpoint is actually the weakest link because the same scenario I mentioned. We work from outside. There is too much data. We download data. When we download data, we download from different sources, which means your threat landscape is increasing by the day. We have emails on the phone, so when we are forwarding an email from our phone to someone else, there is a possibility where a payload could get attached to it, and the person, when they're downloading it, they may download it along with the payload as well. All those is completely possible, right? So when we are looking at a endpoint perspective, there is a huge a drift as well. So the kind of exposure, the frequent exposures what you get from an endpoint is actually huge. From when we are talking about time to contain and all of that, the IR, the incident response, plays a major role. So when you're looking at an incident from an incident perspective, when I talk about an incident, it is when the payload is executed. The incident actually starts. Before the incident, the pre-incident, what should I start looking at, right? In the peri-incident, between the pre-incident, after the incident has started, the peri-incident, the contain and respond, what are the different mechanisms that I'll be using? What are the different ways that I'll start protecting a payload? And the last part is actually the post-incident. The time taken from the pre-incident to post-incident, that's actually the entire, that's exactly called as a time to contain. This is where I'm going to introduce two more jargons, MTTD and MTTR. It's nothing but mean time to detect and mean time to respond. How much time does it take for me to detect? How much time does it take for me to respond? When you're responding, what actions are you going to take? Like, what are the different types of actions I have in my place? When I start detecting, how fast I can detect that there is actually something that is going on within my environment. Just forget about one single workload. You have massive workloads. How do I start detecting? What are the different ways that I would understand saying that what type of connections that these endpoints are actually having within my network, cross networks, so on and so forth. The time from detection to containment on an average takes 24 hours, right from the T0, before the start of the incident or the second the incident starts, the detection process, the automatic response. So what are the ways that I can actually respond to a particular payload? The alert, if there is a payload, what are the different types of alert that I will start getting? Once I start understanding the alerts, how do I start identifying where should I start? How do I start investigating it, right? And what are the monthly what are the manual response methodologies that I have? And from a containment perspective, once it is contained, how do I start verifying the containment as well? And the last thing is the after the containment is over, how do I make sure everything is set into place? That literally takes 24 hours. And for for certain organizations, it goes up to 22% of them. It takes 2 to 7 days. For certain organizations, for 1.3% of the organizations take 1 to 3 months. So in the time taken for every attack is from the detection to the response is actually becoming more and more complex. When we are looking at all these type of an attack, when we are talking about time to contain, how do I start to decompose an attack? What are the different ways that I will start reacting when there is a payload that has been detected in my environment? One, should I start isolating it? Should I start disconnecting my network? If I disconnect my machine from the network, does it mean that I'm safe? I don't know, because I don't know where all the what all different types of connections this machine has actually maintained in my network. What data has actually been sent out from this machine? Probably the data was sent out 3 days ago, 5 days ago, a month ago. I'm not sure whether the payload was actually within it. Did the payload take time for it to actually bombard within my network, detonate within my network? I don't know that. Are my signatures up to date? When I build the latest signature, be able to identify this payload? And should I start doing a scan after that? Does it really make sense for me after there is a payload that has got executed, and now that I have a signature, Can I start doing a scan? Will it make sense? I don't know, right? And should I start informing my IT security team about them, about the existing type of a payload? This is the behavior I see in my machine. Should I just leave it to them to let them handle it? Should I do a manual restore of my backup? This is a very interesting concept, right? So should I do I have backups? Do I really know that whether my backup itself got infected? I don't know that, right? And when you observe the entire life cycle of an attack, it becomes really fascinating to understand what are the different types of methodologies that are being used. Saying this, I just quickly wanted to give you a quick sample of what you see when you have a kind of a payload that got executed, right? So example, when you boot your machine, you see this. What will you do? Your machine is completely encrypted. If I look at my files, I can see that everything is encrypted. I don't know what to do. Am I sure that the files can be actually if I rename my files, will I get it back? Absolutely not. What should I start doing? Should I go back to my security team to inform this? What tools do I have in place? Nothing. So it's a log bit. It's you have to follow the instructions. Other than that, do I have a way to actually get my data back? Absolutely not. So when we are looking at a when we are looking at an attack, right, the most important thing what you should have in place is understanding how it happened and engaging, saying that why it happened. And the third is, how do I start, do I have a way to actually roll it back? Do I have a way to actually understand what is the what is the impact within my network? Those are the most important questions which anyone will have. So for that, I have a quick show of saying that what is the kind of a understanding from an attack perspective. How do I start looking at data, so on and so forth, right? So I'm not going to bore you saying that how the detonation actually happened. I'm going to show you saying that how this actually goes within your network and what are the possible things that you can actually do in order to prevent all of this. So when I'm looking at all the MITRE techniques over here, I understand that what were the different techniques that were actually used in a particular attack. The most important of all is to understand how it actually came in. What is that payload that got executed, and how do I start looking at it? So example, this particular payload which got executed. So I executed it just before the session, probably around 12:30 types. I just went ahead and did it. Let me try to zoom it out for you. Yes. So it's a very simple two-step process that actually happened. It was an executable that got executed, and this particular executable called upon one more child service, and this particular executable itself has called upon 4,002 events on my machine. It has tried to access 3,998 files on my machine, and it is trying to do something within the machine. So first of all, in order to get these details itself, it's actually very difficult, because you may have to involve a third party, say an IR hunter, to understand what is this. If you have a if you have a native way to understanding it, what are the changes that are actually doing within my network, that itself is a great task. Secondly, when I'm starting to look at a particular attack, example, I was talking about how it spreads across the network. This one event, this one exe, what this has actually done, it is trying to do an IP connect. I'm sorry, it's a bit small. Let me try to zoom it in for you. I'm just going to expand it. So it is trying to reach upon different IP addresses. What this is trying to do is it is trying to figure out what are the different IPs that are actually alive, and does it have any kind of WMI services that are running. Will I be able to jump onto another system? Will I be able to do say a lateral movement within the network? And not just that, these are the different types of files it has actually accessed. These are the different processes it has actually accessed. It has created some scheduled tasks. It is trying to delete my VSS backup, so on and so forth. When this happens, you literally have nothing else that you can do other than that, saying that, okay, fine, either you have to go with one of the options. One, pay the ransom, pray to God, saying that, okay, fine, will I get my data back? Or involve an IR, involve a third-party IR, and ask them, saying that, will I get my data? And it's actually not guaranteed, right? So this is something I'm sure a few of you who are in this session might have gone through this painful process. It's absolutely not easy. So here, if there is a way to actually roll back something, even if there is any kind of unto event, that is pretty cool, right? So that's the that's when the AI and ML plays a vital role. So when we are talking about these kind of payloads, the most important thing is if you have a security solution that is not even going to allow you to detonate this. Yes, this is something which everyone tells you, right? So what we also tell you is, even if you have set a policy, because everything is a policy, even if you set a policy to a alert only mode policy, and even if there is a ransomware, you have a way to actually roll it back. That's the power of AI. So I'm going to roll it back. Let's see what happens here. I can see that, roll it back, which means that, so when you're looking at logbit, so this logbit, if you want to have a sample of it, there are different sources. You can get it from GitHub, you can get it from your Malware Bazaar. There are multiple places where you can actually download your these kind of samples. Don't try it on your on your physical machine. Always try it on a virtual machine. Then you will know what kind of impact that it will have within the environment. These are live samples. What I'm showing you is a live sample. So this is one quick way to actually look at how it actually entered my network. I didn't want to bore you saying that what are the different ways I can detonate it, how you can start looking at the data. But what I'm showing you here is, even if you turn on your machine, if you see that this is a scenario, it's actually a nightmare. Within minutes, within seconds, you can actually start rolling back, whatever impact that it had on your machine. You can see that it is already killed, it has quarantined, it has remediated, it is now trying to roll it back, right? So it is that simple. If you have this kind of a quick response, and if you have a way to actually roll back something, I believe that that's actually a quite a cool tool to have. When I say cool tool, it's just not about the coolness. It's about how effective it is going to be within the network. You can see all the files are back. Even the desktop background is gone. It is rolled back every single infection payload, whatever damage the payload has caused, it is actually put back to place. This is the power of this tool, and you don't have to be paranoid about a ransomware type of an attack or any type of attack, fileless attack. This is going to help you out as well. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop my share. This is going to be the end of the session. As I told that, I'm going to be really, really crisp. I'm going to give back some time to you so that you can digest this data. I'm going to be open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Yashaswi. You are our superhuman for today. You really spoke about the actual attacks that happened, and it was a shock to know about the statistics. 68% of Indian organizations having paid ransom. It is really scary. So, but it was always good to know about the danger, how dangerous the Lockbit 2.0 is. And also, it was really amazing to know how well the AI technologies can be used in cybersecurity defense. I have one question. Which is more important metric, dwell time or MTTR?
Okay. So when you're talking about dwell time and MTTR, so there is some kind of overlap between that. So dwell time is how long the payload has been in my network. There are certain technologies which don't even understand the dormant threats. I call it as a sleeper cell, right? And when you're talking about MTTR, right, mean time to respond, how much time does it take for me to understand it, and how much time does it take for me to respond to it. You can see that how quick the solution actually helps. So it's just not about pushing a solution, it's not about pitching about a solution and all of that, but if you have a tool which can actually help you in the current scenarios, right? So that's the crux of it.
Thank you. That's nice. One more question. So there are many global regulatory requirements who are mandating to report the incidents within 24 hours and different timelines for different regulators. How easy or how tough it is to keep up to these timelines?
24 hours is too much for us. So yeah. So once you start understand, so the tool works in real time. So the best part about this is, generally when we are talking about work from home scenarios, when we are talking about any security solution, right, it needs to have some connectivity to either to the corporate office or to the cloud in order to detect and respond and all of that. The solution what I've shown here, the Sentinel One solution, it is an autonomous solution, which means that even if it is not connected anywhere, it is going to give you full protection. So if it is connected to the console, what the console is going to understand is, it is going to immediately understand that split second. It is going to understand that there is this kind of an attack that has been performed on this machine, or a payload has been executed. It will immediately respond to you. So all this is completely integrated, right, from your SIEMs to your email machines or to your SMS. Everything is so you it's like really live tracking what is happening within the machine, within the environment.
That's really amazing. Great. I think we don't have any more questions. So thank you. And thank you all, audience, for participating in this session. Please take a moment to complete this brief anonymous feedback as well. Your feedback is very important for us. Feedback poll, please. Thank you for your feedback. Let's quickly move on to our next planned session, Key Inflection Points on Your Journey to XDR, by Mr. Setu Kulkarni, VP Corporate Strategy and Business Development, Whitehat Security US, now part of NTT Security. He is a corporate strategy and product management executive with feet on the ground experience in NAM, Europe, and APAC. He leads XDR business and product strategy for NTT Security. Prior to NTT Security, he established and led the corporate strategy and PM functions during critical growth years at Whitehat Security, resulting in its acquisition by NTT Security. Earlier in his career, he led platform product strategy and management at TIPCO for operational intelligence, cloud, SOA, and BPM products. Setu is a company spokesperson, a speaker at industry and investor events, a podcast host, and a thought leader for entity security and entity application security. Welcome, Mr. Setu, with a recorded session. Can we play the session, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Setu Kulkarni, and I'm the VP of Corporate Strategy here at Security Division of NTT. Let me share my screen as I walk you through my presentation today. Today, what I'll be talking about is a set of key inflection points on your journey to XDR. But before we get into that conversation, I really want to first touch upon the concept of XDR, make sure all of us understand what XDR is and we're on the same page. Once we've done that, I'll walk through the rest of the presentation talking about some of the key inflection points that we all need to keep in mind as we think about our own journeys onto XDR. Now, as we start thinking about XDR, one of the first things I like to do is talk about the business problem. What I've tried to do is highlight the business problem really in this equation up here. Today, we have more endpoints than ever. There are enough reports out there that talk about the explosion in endpoints, whether they're traditional endpoints or OT IoT endpoints. At the same time, there are more connected systems than ever, whether they're software applications or OT IoT devices that are connecting back to a backend system through APIs. All systems are now more connected than ever. Now, as the number of endpoints and connected systems is increasing, we also see that response times, the time it takes for us to respond to an incident or a potential incident, is also increasing. Now, what makes the situation worse is the fact that the number of threats that we face as an industry is also increasing at an exponential rate. You take each one of these four facts, they have a combinatorial effect on increasing the overall risk that any business faces today. Now, what we think is a good solution here is an ecosystem-based approach. The idea that today we've got many cybersecurity solutions in our organization, they all need to work together in harmony, work together in a simple, seamless manner as an ecosystem to provide the security outcomes that we're looking for. The security outcomes being a better security posture, rapid response to incidents, so on and so forth. In our view, this ecosystem approach really has a few key characteristics. One, at the heart of the ecosystem is going to be a platform that is able to ingest security information and process it in real time. The solution should offer detection, alerting, and response capabilities in a manner that analysts can easily use them. The solution should also combine security technologies, the ones that you have deployed in your enterprise today, with human expertise, whether that human expertise comes from the vendor or it comes from your own analysts. That human expertise should be combined with the intelligence that your security products are already providing. And last but not the least, when we start thinking about this ecosystem approach, we also want to make sure that all the cybersecurity solutions you have in your enterprise today are able to connect together to provide the outcomes that you're looking for. Now, what I'd like to do next is really start looking at XDR. First, let me define what XDR is from our point of view. When I think about XDR, I think about a platform that is able to centralize and normalize cybersecurity information. That's key requirement number one. For an XDR solution, the XDR solution should be able to get all the cybersecurity information in one place. It should be able to normalize that cybersecurity information or data as much as possible so that the platform can then start performing automated analysis, give you the capabilities to query for information, and at the end of the day, also allow you to run programs, machine learning, artificial intelligence techniques to increase the accuracy of the results that you're getting. Now, the final piece of the XDR solution should also allow you to take proactive as well as perform reactive response when you get an alert about an incident that has already occurred, or you get an alert about an incident that is about to occur. So that's really what the XDR solution should do. That's how we define the XDR solution. Now on the right, I've got a chart here. It's a very typical analyst chart, but I think it's an important one because it actually plots where the extended detection and response platforms and concepts are from a journey perspective. As you can see, they're fairly early on in their life. Extended detection response is a fairly recent concept. Obviously, it's a successor in a way to existing concepts like managed detection response, but the extended detection response concept overall is a pretty new one. It's a more expanded view on what detection response should be. It encompasses a lot more security technologies. It encompasses a lot more features and functionalities in the platform. And it also encompasses a lot more from a response perspective. Now that we've had that conversation, we've kind of defined what XDR is. Let's take a closer look at XDR from a security analyst point of view. We'll also have a look at it from a vendor's point of view. What do vendors think about XDR? And we'll again recap what the maturity of XDR products is and adoption is. Let's focus first on the security analysts. Now, all of you have either been a security analyst at some point in your career, or probably are today, or you deal with your own customers who have security analysts on their payroll. Now, one of the biggest challenges, in our opinion, from a security analyst point of view is the fact that security analysts have to deploy, operationalize, and act on the insights that a variety of these cybersecurity solutions provide, right? At the end of the day, the cybersecurity analyst has to roll up their sleeves and perform all the activities involved in deploying the solution. Once the solution has been deployed, they also need to make sure it is integrated with their current working ecosystem. That is a part of operationalization. When the alerts start showing up, you need to start tuning those alerts to make sure you're getting the right alerts in the right scope. So that also forms a part of the operationalization that security analyst has to perform. And at the same time, when you start looking at the insight and the alerts that are being produced, you have to start removing false positives. So that's, again, a sizable chunk of work that you do in the operationalization phase. And once you start getting the insights that you want, you then have to act on the insight by either taking a proactive or a reactive response. So that's really what an analyst is trying to do. And when it comes to XDR, the same challenges still exist, right? For an XDR solution, the analyst is looking at all the various tasks to make the XDR solution functional. That's where we feel that analysts, more often than not, can benefit from a managed security service or a solution. And that's the reason why the managed version of XDR that I'll talk about in a minute becomes so important. Now let's look at XDR from a vendor's point of view. Today, XDR vendors basically identify themselves as either a native XDR vendor or a hybrid XDR vendor. When we talk about native XDR vendors, these are vendors that have an existing stack of cybersecurity solutions. And in an attempt to integrate all these cybersecurity solutions under one umbrella, they're now offering XDR. XDR is the platform, so to say, that integrates their full stack of cybersecurity solutions. Now, on the other hand, you also have hybrid XDR vendors. Hybrid XDR vendors are really vendors that have taken a more open approach to XDR. These vendors are really looking at integrating your existing cybersecurity solutions into the XDR platform. So that's the approach that they're taking. They want to provide a platform, but the platform does not have vendor lock-in. They're offering offering a capability or set of capabilities that allows you to integrate either your existing cybersecurity solutions or any new cybersecurity solution that you're going to implement into this platform. Now, the final piece here is Xdr Maturity. I think we've spoken about this in a previous slide. XDR as a concept is pretty new. The adoption of XDR is still very nascent. At the same time, XDR platforms, we believe, are undergoing a lot of rapid development. They're maturing, but they're not as mature as one would think they would be. Let's take a closer look now at what are some of the requirements from a customer's point of view. And you might be in a position today where you are choosing an XDR solution for yourself. So you are the customer from that point of view. What are some of the requirements that a customer is looking for as they choose their XDR solution? And as a matter of fact, as they're putting together their XDR strategy. The client needs are pretty straightforward, right? If you look at security, the security model today, it is broken, right? It is complex. There's so many tools that you need to work with. It's hard to maintain. Every time you add a new tool in your enterprise, the maintenance cost of the entire solution goes up. And at the end of the day, cybersecurity implementations today are very inefficient. That's really what security teams are trying to solve for, right? They have a variety of tools at their disposal. They want to make sure they're simple to integrate, they're simple to maintain, and you can realize a return on investment pretty quickly. From a platform capabilities perspective, again, very simple, right? You want to be able to perform your basic tasks of detection, alerting, and response, and you want to do it in a simple manner. You want to do it from one user interface, and that's really what you want from the platform. As far as consumption is concerned, I've heard from customers where they come to us and say, look, we want to be able to consume cybersecurity solutions based on our needs, right? Some customers are in a position to consume this in a fully self-service manner. Most of the market that we speak to, they want to consume it in a managed service manner. And we also find that there are organizations that have strategic partners like SIs, or they're working with boutique partners who they want to use to offer their XDR solutions. So consumption options is another key factor that you should keep in mind when you're choosing your XDR strategy. Last but not the least, one of the most important things that we need to start thinking about when we think about XDR is the role of analysts. And I'm going to talk about the role of analysts again in a few slides, but the role of analysts is consistently evolving. And we see that while in the past, the analysts were looking at data and they're trying to find the insight, whether they were doing a stare and compare or they were writing queries and rules. But at the end of the day, analysts were spending a lot of time trying to find insight. Where I think the role of analysts needs to shift and is gradually shifting is as someone who helps mitigate and manage risk, right? At the end of the day, once you have the insight and the business context, the analyst should be able to make an adjudication of what the best action is. Should we basically sequester a machine? Should we shut a machine down? Should we ring fence it? What is a strategy we need to take in the face of cyber threat to keep the business going? So that's where I think the role of analysts is shifting as we speak. Now, what I'm going to do next is over the next 3 or 4 slides, I'm going to start talking about some key inflection points, some key decision points, some of the things that you need to think about as you're putting together your XDR strategy and you're implementing an XDR solution. The first point of view I want to talk about is this choice between accuracy, coverage, and speed. I fundamentally believe that this choice that we had to make, for example, if you want high accuracy, let's reduce the coverage. Right? If you want high speed, let's reduce the accuracy. right? So there was always an either or question. I think that either or question should go away. As you put your XDR strategy together, one of the first things you should look for is a combination of accuracy, coverage, speed, and ultimately return on investment. And one of the ways to guarantee that combination is available to you is by looking at what kind of features the XDR platform is able to provide. I'll give you a couple examples here. When you're thinking about accuracy, what are you trying to do? You're trying to avoid high false positives, right? You're also trying to avoid a trade-off between accuracy and coverage. So one of the ways you can achieve that is by making sure that your strategy and your implementation both account for the tremendous amount of human intelligence that is available today in your analysts, right? How do how does the platform allow you to combine the human expertise with the machine data, the machine analysis, the correlation that the platform is performing, right? The combination of human expertise with machine-driven expertise is really what is going to drive accuracy. That is what is going to drive down the high false positive rates. That is what is going to drive up the accuracy rates. Now, from a coverage point of view, when you are putting together your implementation plan for XDR, one of the things that you should start looking at is, can I combine threat intelligence feeds? I'm already investing time and resources potentially to generate or capture or use threat intelligence feeds. Can I combine those threat intelligence feeds with data-driven, hypothesis-driven threat hunting that my analyst can perform, along with automated threat detection over your entire landscape of endpoints, apps, cloud, OT, IoT devices? How can I bring in all these security data feeds together in one platform so I can look at all this data at one go, use my analysts, use the automation that the platform provides to get maximum coverage that is possible. From a speed point of view, again, I think as customers, we need to start thinking about what's the best consumption model for our needs. For example, if you have the ability through your analysts to start looking at security data and intelligence in a self-service manner, that might be the right speed and right choice for you. Whereas you might have a small team and you might be spending a lot of time going through the alerts that the platform is generating. You should actually then start looking at other options to drive up speed. For example, employing a managed security solutions or a managed security services type strategy. Now, this is kind of the point of view I wanted to present as one of the first things that you need to think about when you're thinking about XDR. The next inflection point or point of view, so to say, that I wanted to bring to this conversation today is about complexity, right? Just imagine the number of tools and solutions you have in your enterprise today solving your security needs. And for you to really get the security outcome, you need to start integrating these solutions. These integrated solutions need to start working together to be able to drive the outcome that you need. Now, sometimes this integration is what I'd call manual integration, where you're opening up two screens and you're doing a side-by-side compare. But many times you've probably written some integration, or maybe two solutions integrate with each other nicely, and you've kind of integrated both of them to drive an outcome. But what's happening today is what I've described in this diagram here. The mishmash of integrations has made the overall cybersecurity solution very difficult to manage. When you move to XDR, one of the design principles or one of the inflection points should be to simplify your cybersecurity landscape. The XDR solution should take this point-to-point integration away. You should be able to plug in and plug out the solutions that you like or don't like to the XDR solution. The XDR solution is really what drives the overall end-to-end workflows or overall end-to-end journeys that you as an analyst are going to take when the XDR solution is in play. And that really is critical because once you've kind of established that design principle that XDR is going to be my central security platform, it starts removing the fear of vendor lock-in, right? Suppose you like a vendor today and you're using that tool set. Tomorrow, that tool set is not good enough for you. You can switch them out and insert a new tool set that you like, and your XDR solution will take care of ensuring that the overall solution continues to work. Now that we've spoken about accuracy, coverage, speed, and return on investment as being non-optional, we spoke about the fact that as you think about XDR, one of the design principles or inflection points should be removing complexity. Let's talk about the role of analysts. I fundamentally believe that the role of analysts is not going to go away with XDR. As a matter of fact, if anything, the role of analysts has to start changing with the introduction of XDR in your organization. Now, what I've tried to do here is describe 3 separate analyst roles. I've tried to be very specific around each one of these roles. Let me walk you through these roles first before I talk about how these roles might actually start showing up in your organization. The first role is what I'm calling the cyber analyst. Now, cyber analysts typically, in my mind, are sitting on the vendor's end. On your XDR vendor's end, they have a set of highly qualified cyber analysts. And these cyber analysts are curating the global cybersecurity information that is available to this XDR platform. Right? They are the ones who are looking for global patterns, global threats, and making sure that all these are accounted for in the XDR platform. These analysts are also performing event-driven and hypothesis-based threat hunting. They're developing rules, they're deploying new rules, they're editing old rules. They're all participating, they're working with scientists and developing machine learning models, and they're also performing these. And the next level of analysts are managed security services analysts, right? These analysts are really acting on behalf of the customer. They're the ones who are working with the customer to not only operationalize the solution, but also with the customer's help, contextualize the risk for the customer cybersecurity team. The last type of analyst I want to talk about are the customer analysts, right? Remember when I started off this conversation, I spoke about how eventually the customer has to move from finding insight to figuring out what to do with the insight. So the customer analyst perfectly fits that role. They're the ones who are contextualizing the risk, either themselves or with the help of the managed security services analyst. But then they're taking that insight, that knowledge of the risk, and helping the business take the right set of mitigative steps in a manner that business is impacted to the least amount possible. But those are kind of the functions that the customer analyst should start playing with the implementation of XDR. So those are the 3 kind of highly specific analyst roles that I wanted to describe. Now, as to where these analysts sit, the cyber analysts, the first one that I talked about, typically sit with the XDR vendor. The managed security services analyst is with the managed security services provider, but it's quite possible that if you have the security services team is doing, you could be performing the deployment task, the operationalization task, the investigation task yourself. But at the end of the day, you definitely need to have some cybersecurity specialist on your end as a customer to contextualize the risk and make sure you're taking the right actions to minimize the impact of the cybersecurity incident that has either already occurred or is about to occur. Now, the final point of view that I wanted to offer as a design principle is thinking about what are the available consumption options and what's the best consumption option for you as an organization. The first consumption option is self-service XDR, right? The idea here is that you have a very well-managed scope and you have the right set of resources, cybersecurity resources in your team to be able to manage the XDR deployment, operationalization, and eventually taking the actions based on the insights that you get yourself. In that case, you may want to choose self-service XDR as a consumption option. The platform would then be providing you the alerts, and your security analysts will be working with those alerts, using the platform to perform investigation. They would be doing activities or performing activities like threat hunting, and they'd be putting together what I call response workflows based on the alerts or the insights that they're discovering, right? See, all of the responsibility for end-to-end security now becomes your responsibility when you choose self-service XDR. If you have the team to do it, that's a perfectly valid option. Now, where I think most of the market is headed, though, is managed XDR, just because putting together a large cybersecurity team is not easy, right? You need to, first of all, get resources. Then you need to train these resources on all the technologies that you have. And then you need to make sure that all the runbooks, all the response workflows are well documented and you're able to repeat them over and over again as you perform your tasks. So that is a tall ask. It's a tall order to achieve. And that's the reason why I feel that most of the market is headed to managed XDR, where a managed services provider or managed security services provider is pretty much using the same platform that the self-service XDR provides, but the managed service analysts are taking on the responsibility to perform the SecOps function on behalf of the customer. The managed security services analysts are doing alert investigation, they're performing threat hunting, they're looking at security incidents, they're creating the reports, they're potentially also invoking actions like remote isolation, so on and so forth. Now, the final form factor, which is interesting, is a partner managed solution. And the idea here is that you might be a large enough organization that you have a retainer with a large, let's say an SI, to provide you cybersecurity services. And you should be able to then ask the SI to build and operate your XDR strategy and implementation. Again, then the partner that you've chosen is acting on your behalf to pretty much provide you managed services, but very specific to your needs in your ecosystem, in your data center, so to say. So those are some of the consumption options that you need to start thinking about as you think about XDR in your organization. Now, how do we bring this all together? Obviously, I spoke about initially how I think hybrid XDR is the way to go because there is no vendor lock-in. So let me kind of outline what the blueprint for hybrid XDR looks like using the four concepts that I spoke about, right? The trade-off between accuracy, speed, coverage, and return on investment should not exist. XDR should simplify your life. You should have a variety of consumption options, and the role of analysts should continue to change and become more business oriented as you implement XDR. How do we bring this all together? Now, how we bring this all together, at least from a blueprint point of view, is start looking at all the types of security solutions you have deployed in your enterprise today. You have intelligent security gateways. You have a lot of endpoint security, especially with more remote work becoming predominant. Cloud security tools and services that you're using today for your applications that either you're using or you're providing to your end users. SIM platforms, again, they provide great value to the enterprise, but their value has to be incorporated into the overall cybersecurity landscape. Application security, again, you're producing more applications than ever, OT, IoT, so on and so forth. The idea here is you need bi-directional integration with these systems. You need to be able to consume the data that they're producing, but you also need to be able to act with them or create action through them where appropriate in an automated manner through integrations. That, to me, is the blueprint of an XDR solution. At the end of the day, if you're able to do this, you'll be able to drive simplified detection, alerting, and reporting, and proactive and reactive response in your organization. Now, let me wrap up quickly and summarize today's conversation and discussion. We started off today by looking at the overall problem statement that we all face using this equation. The number of endpoints that we have is increasing, right? With the proliferation of endpoints, whether they're desktops, laptops, including mobile phones, OT, IoT devices, that attack surface has increased tremendously. All these systems that we're talking about are more connected than ever, right? They're talking to each other through APIs. They're talking to back-end systems. The back-end systems are talking to each other. So these systems have become more connected, and the overall landscape, I believe, has become more complex because of that. At the same time, the response time as an industry has gone up considerably. We have some primary research as well as secondary research that suggests that response times are at their highest. And now, while all of this is happening, the number of threats that our systems face out in the wild has also increased exponentially. And if you combine these four factors, our businesses are at more risk than ever. The solution that I think is going to help us resolve this issue is actually an ecosystem-based XDR approach. And we spoke about how the ecosystem-based XDR approach really is all about centralizing data, normalizing data to whatever extent possible, combining human expertise with machine learning, automation, correlation to create accurate alerts and insight, and then being able to take proactive and reactive actions based on the insights that we're getting. We then spoke about kind of the four decision points or inflection points or design principles that we need to keep in mind as we think about XDR. You should not have to choose between accuracy, coverage, speed, and return on investment. You should get all of them. Your overall cybersecurity implementation should become simpler because you've decided to implement XDR. Analyst intervention should shift from finding intelligence or finding insight or looking at alerts and figuring out what's a true positive, what's not, to actually figuring out what to do with that alert. Working with the business, contextualizing the cyber risk in terms of the business, and then offering the next best action or the best action that is possible for the business to not only mitigate the risk, but continue to operate the business. Last but not the least, when you think about XDR, you should also ensure that you're consuming your XDR solution in a business model that fits your current needs, your current budget, your current regulatory and compliance requirements. Can you use self-service XDR if you have the team? Or should you move to managed XDR because that's where you don't need a large team on your end. You can rely on the expertise of the managed service provider. Or do you have a partner that can help you deliver XDR for your organization? Now, with that, I hope this conversation was helpful. It gives you a good idea of what XDR is, where the maturity is, what are some of the design principles you need to think about, and hopefully, as you think about your XDR strategy and your implementation, you have some basis and some grounding in some of these principles to make the best decision possible. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. Hopefully this was useful and helpful. And again, if there are any questions, happy to be connected with you and take those questions and provide an answer the best I can. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thanks to Mr. Setu Kulkarni. That was an insightful session. Mr. Setu is from US and it's too early for him to join this meeting. Nevertheless, please post your questions for Mr. Setu and we would get that answered. Once again, thank you for participating in this session. Please take a moment to complete this brief anonymous feedback poll questionnaire in real time. Your feedback is very important to us. Feedback poll, please. Great. Thank you for the feedback. So many of you participated in the quiz during lunch, and I guess you are very eager to know what the results are, right? This quiz was conducted by Value Point, and we had 89 participants, and there were 13 members who had the right answers, and 3 of them did not provide any name or email ID while reviewing. So unfortunate. So we have 10 winners that we can announce now. Great, now you have it on the screen. Mr. Suresh, George Joseph, Ashok Kumar DL, Suryadeep, Anand TA, Deval Mazumdar, Aditya, Narendrajit, R.A. Upadhyaya, Suresh Shankaran. Congratulations to all the winners and hope you enjoy your gift. And once again, thanks for all of your feedback as well. And finally, thank you all for listening to me and for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this great event. I hope you're all enjoying and learning. Please don't forget to participate in the sponsor booths and you can win exciting gifts as well. With this, I end my bit of MC for this event. Stay safe and take care. Let's have a quick tea break for about 15 minutes now and reconvene by 3:35 p.m. Thank you.